What's up, Volley Tribe? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Since we've shifted the podcast to being guest only, I've wanted to go out and get as many great coaches, as many people that can really help you as coaches develop what you do and what you offer to your athletes on a daily, weekly, bi-weekly basis. And today is absolutely no different. Someone that I love listening to, love learning from. He's Volley Women's Beach Volleyball Performance Director. He's also a coach of one of the world's top beach pairs, Muller and Tillman, the German current world number eights. Mr. Kirk Pitman. Kirk, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for the introductory. That's nice. Yeah, always good to chat. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Catching you in a little bit of a rare moment off the sand at this time of year, right?
yeah, yeah. The Christmas period is always even with my teams and stuff is always I think a time for family and recharging. Yeah, just I think it's really important. Sometimes that recovery piece is just as important to development as in working really hard. So yeah, I do love the festive period, and I managed to get home to New Zealand, so I'm fully recharged. Got a nice tan going, so let's see if I can hold on to that through the winter.
The important things when you're on the sand all the time.
Well, yeah.
So, talk to us a little bit about how you got here, how you got to this point in your coaching history, and kind of when it turned a little bit more ecological in your approach for coaching.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll probably start. Yeah, how I got into coaching. I played for New Zealand for 10 years. And during that time, I probably look back a little bit. It wasn't by design, but I did a lot of coaching anyway, just to kind of make ends meet. And, and I did like to, I've always been a sharer. I like to, I like people, I like connecting with people. So coaching was a really cool way to kind of give back. So younger kids or camps and things, I was always doing that even through those 10 years that I was playing to make some a little bit of cash, obviously, but also I did really enjoy it. But I never ever thought about ever becoming a coach, which is strange. But I always had, I was lucky to have some great coaches through my career. Uh, and there was always a bit of talk around, hey, you'd make a good coach one day, but I never actually took that seriously. And yeah, I kind of I retired after 2012. Yeah, I obviously met my wife playing. She played for Team GB in the Olympics in 2012. Moved to England in 2013. We got married. So it's kind of like, hey, what next after retirement? And I started a job at Leaf Academy here in Bournemouth. I live in Bournemouth. And that was kind of the start of the coaching journey. That was cool. Yeah, I was doing a role. I took over from Ben Pipes. So it was a really, good friend of mine as well. We played for Wessex when, I was playing a bit of indoor when I retired. So it was nice to hang out with the Wessex boys and kind of transition to, I guess the role was more of a director of volleyball, but it was a little bit more hands-on with that and working with a lot of the athletes there. And started coaching in an under 18 boys capacity, which is for me was a great challenge. And with some names like Harry Jones, some characters that are still around kind of playing and stuff too. Even Issa, I think Issa had just left Betrain. So yeah, we had some really good times, and so kind of fell into coaching really. And then an opportunity arose to work with Chris Gregory and Jake Sheaf towards the campaign towards Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, which was great. Yeah, I think those boys, I saw a little bit of myself in them, self-driven, very motivated. So I jumped at the opportunity to kind of help and see them through to that. And along the way, I got approached by Australia to go work with their women's Olympic campaign towards Tokyo, which was with Taliqua Clancy and Maria Faye Artacho. Del Salah, so I'll give her a full name. She'll love that. So yeah, and so that was an experience, and that was an opportunity that I probably couldn't just pass up. Really, my kids were young. I think my son was just 3 months old, and we just packed everything up and we went to Adelaide for 2 years. And then we moved to Brisbane for the last two with COVID happening, kind of had to adapt and kind of get to some warmer climate to kind of train and prepare for Tokyo. And yeah, obviously won a silver medal at the Olympics, which was pretty cool. And never was, one of my dreams as an athlete was to make the Olympics, and I never made it. By a couple of spots through a couple of campaigns, 2008 and 2012. So it was really nice to stand there with my playing partner who was coaching America. So I've still got a really cool photo of me and him beside the rings in Tokyo coaching. But to take home a medal was pretty special and kind of crazy in a lot of ways, just because of the whole Olympics and the run in the extra year, just so many challenges and yeah. And the time came where, family first for me, that's always been a really a big thing for me, is making sure that I'm there for my family. And it was, my daughter was going to school, where was she going to go to school, and where we were going to be for the next kind of few years. So moved back to England. On the way back, got the opportunity to work with Germany, and I've been working with them. I think this is my 5th year working in Germany. So it's a part-time kind of role where I fly in and fly out, and working with a lot of other great coaches and a team around me there. So we had the Paris Olympics now with the team, and now it's all full preparation towards LA 2028. So that's a bit of a whirlwind, kind of coaching. That's how I got into coaching. But from that point there, it's over 10 years. Which is crazy to think that it's almost the same as my playing career, where I thought I was playing for a very long time. Now I've been coaching for a very long time. Yeah.
It's crazy how the years pass really, really quickly, especially when you do something you love. I think one of the things that I've seen from the outside looking in, I'm not involved on the beach side, but we've seen the growth on that side, and especially at the performance kind of level in England.
Yeah.
How important is it that you can stay in touch with some of the best teams in the world and working with your German pair, but then also bring that to your role with Volleyball England as well?
Yeah, it's quite unique. And I think some of the advantages is having experience of experienced lots of different working with different national governing bodies and cultures. So I think the culture piece has been, in Australia, it's far different than working in Germany. You probably couldn't get them to on a continuum. They're a long way apart from each other, with real great strengths within their culture and their organization, and then trying to look at it like, where is England at, and where we want to go, and it's at different stages. So I think it's been really beneficial, especially to kind of see, I think in Germany the structure that they have is amazing. Can it be exactly the same as that? No, because it's just different. But I think a lot of their kind of key principles and the way that they operate, I think there's some stuff that you can really take from it and kind of build a pathway and kind of create a little bit of a system that kind of gets where we want to go.
So I was able to watch you practice or coach Alice and Kirsty when we were down at Bucks Beach in June, and I found it really, really interesting to watch, because it's just you and a beach volleyball pair on one court. Most coaches will look at that and go, how can I create a session that looks like the game when I don't have the 4 players that I need to create the game? And I think it was really interesting how you used constraints, how you used different areas, different contextualized approaches to really create a session where they had one goal to work on, and they were just working on that. But it wasn't repetitive, it wasn't monotonous, it was varied in what was going on. So talk to us a little bit about the challenges of working with kind of half of what you need some of the time, because it must happen more than.
Yeah, it does. And to be honest, yeah, it was interesting because I knew you guys were there. I always love to, and I know your background within a bit of ecological kind of dynamic stuff to get to have a chat, but we didn't either shoot off, so that was a bit of a shame. So it's good that we can chat about it now. Yeah, I don't ideally want just two, I want the ball going over the net. The game. So that would be my first preference. But sometimes we're in these situations where this is what it is. We have two players on the beach and one coach. And then the challenge is to how can you get it as close as you can to represent. And probably what you saw or what my goal was within a lot of those sessions is having that representativeness. So not just blocked, doing one skill or like just kind of manipulating it around in a certain way and then making it the kind of looking at like how difficult it is with them with changing different tasks to then being like, how can I manipulate what they need to do? So what is successful? So reception, for example, I always like to use, we want to get the ball to the net. So like, your setter setting the ball, like drawing a line in front of the net, 2 meters and saying, hey, look, for it to be to further it on or to win the point, they need to be setting that ball in there or attacking it on two, using the option or just kind of really trying to manipulate things to make it even more difficult for them as the session goes. Either you ramp it up or actually maybe sometimes you might want to pull it back, but also how a game works as well, where it's not just all about just siding out all the time. Maybe it's a couple of side outs and then we're going to switch into doing a bit of block defense. And then again, I always just see it as like a bit of a volume, knowing where you can take it and how you can kind of button it off to make it a little bit easier. Yeah, I guess it's the art of, when you're in it, you design it, and then you're trying to hopefully bring it to life with these humans that are there or thinking maybe too much or too less or so yeah, that was kind of my goal for that session where they just they needed a lot of touches and to work on stuff and around a little bit of structure of their game. So yeah, that's kind of what I created in that situation.
So let's move on to what I really brought you on here to talk about, which is the framework that you've kind of developed for Volleyball England for junior development. We're kind of calling it the 4A's, right? Or the 4 pillars, you call it, of elite performance.
Yeah.
And that's, we're looking to develop athletes that are adaptable, autonomous, audacious, and athletes. So talk us through that framework a little bit, kind of where it came from, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper in each of those 4.
Well, I was sitting watching the final in Tokyo. We were playing America, Alex Kleinman and April Ross. I know April Ross, we used to have the same coach, so I know her work ethic, I know her mindset. Like, there's a reason why she's one of the top players in history, and won everything. She's incredible. So just to know my athletes as well, I just wondered, I was like, well, why these 4 athletes on the court now in the final and not all the rest? Because there's some phenomenal athletes from all different countries and backgrounds. And I sometimes was always just questioning around, I think all the coaches and everyone knows a lot of the technical stuff. So I don't think there's big secrets around it. Okay, you can have different styles and tactics around what you want to do and certain things like that. But I was like, for me, I think sometimes the X's and the O's was, it was I'll say easier bit. The challenging bit was the behaviors. And I kind of really just started, my first thoughts was like, well, you got 4 great athletes. I think, for a start, I know Hugh McCutcheon, when I first heard it, was you can't win the derby on a donkey, so it's that kind of, you need to have the athlete, the thoroughbred to kind of be out there and have a lot of these movements and do a lot of stuff, get up there and smash the ball and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of where it started with the athlete. So I was like, okay, we need an athlete. You got to have an athlete. The second one was around the kind of competitiveness, that hunger, that desire to win, to get over the line when it's, when it's 19-all, when it's, 14-all in the tie break, like to have that athlete. Like, how do you, that's just, for me, was just so important, not only in those moments in the game, but also then that drive and that hunger when you wanted to improve. So it was competitiveness, and then actually Charlie, I'll give credit to Charlie Ford on that one, who came up with the word audaciousness, which I love, and that's what created the fourth A. So it was three A's and a C, and then I'll give Charlie that. So it's got a nice ring to it, and so yeah, and then I started, the game of volleyball is just so many decisions, and I'm a big believer in my philosophy around it being the individual. You're not controlling the athlete. It's happening. It's happening so fast. They need to be making these decisions, and I think that's just really important for these athletes to be in that moment, to kind of make those decisions, as well as like on and off the court. I think there's one of the biggest strengths within my team in Germany is their conscientiousness, their discipline and their work ethic. Sometimes I think it's a decision, that hey, that's what I'm going to go do, and then they fully commit to it. So that's where that kind of came from. And then I probably started working within ecological dynamics when I was in Adelaide. They have skill acquisition specialists within their state. So Mick Maloney was the first guy. I had him luckily 2 to 3 times a week, and we'd sit there probably like for 2 hours planning the session. And and then we'd go and do the session, and I'd have him sitting there taking a tally on, what kind of affordances we wanted to, if you would want to get all technical around some of the things that we wanted to work on that were happening. And then he would take a bit of a tally, and he'd give me a bit of feedback at the end, and then we'd reflect like maybe for an hour afterwards. So I had him like 2-3 times a week. And that's where I learned a lot, and it kind of opened my eyes towards things. And I then was fortunate enough to work with his mentor. So, in Brisbane. So that was like, yeah, it was a kind of a time where I learned that probably this adaptability on the court was so important. And then I reflected a little bit more around just the nature of beach volleyball, conditions, but also like sometimes the draw, you have to adapt with things happening, with your world Cup changing tournaments, dates, and certain things like that. That actually it's quite important that you have to adapt. So that's kind of how I I guess just came. I just was, I've worked a lot with really complex frameworks, and for me, what I found with that was it was just too many. I didn't disagree with it was just too detailed, and then you just get lost. And then what do you really like break it down to? And these are what I broke it down to with these, I call them behaviors, because a lot of them these high performance behaviors within our sport, where I feel is really important. And then all the other stuff becomes a lot easier, the X's and the O's.
So I think there's something a mentor of mine once told me. He said that great coaches take the complex stuff and make it really easy to understand. And novice coaches take the easy stuff and make it really complex to understand because they're trying to seem intelligent.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things this does, and one of the reasons I really like it, is I can use these terms and a lot of these things with athletes that are with me at Essex, that are ex-professional athletes that have played 3, 4, 5 years pro in Europe and come back, or played in the NCAA, or represented England senior national team. But I can also then use it with my U18 England team that have just come in, that are 14 and 15, 16 years old. And it's stuff that they all understand. It's words that they maybe not 14 always understand, but they can attach their own meaning to.
Yeah.
And we can start to develop some of those behaviors without telling them exactly what it means. Because if you tell them what it means, it never registers. They have to take some ownership of it, and we're already developing the autonomous piece there by letting the athlete take ownership of it. I want to come back to the audacious word. I know it's not yours, but it's my favourite one out of the 4. I think you look at the best, the real elite athletes, and they have that little bit of a sense of, at 19, like you say, at 23 indoors, they're like, give me the ball. I back myself right now to go and put that point away. Go and kill the ball. Go and win the point, go and win this for my team. And that's something that you have to, for me, foster with, okay, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do that and get it wrong sometimes. Not necessarily coming out and saying it's okay to lose, but it's okay to lose in the right way.
Yeah, and I think I always look at it for me as like, leaning into it, like it has a challenge in whatever way it might be, that's the usually that's the language I like to kind of use, or sometimes when I see someone like, oh wow, they really lean into that, like that moment, which in the game I love that, when I see that kind of stuff, or I see it actually develop, because I think it's like anything, it's a skill, to identify. You might naturally have some default that you go to, but can you I understand that's where you are and then actually go where you wanted to go? I think that's also very cool when you see someone that usually would run away.
Yeah, it's the best for me coaching when I'm coaching the younger group when they first take on that challenge. Where the transition out of being a little bit scared of taking the challenge on, scared of making the error, to then actually I'm gonna go up and swing hard on the ball. I'm gonna go up and try to swing the tough shot rather than the easy shot is absolutely the best part. I think in beach as well though it's interesting, right? Because the top teams will play each other multiple times a season, so you kind of have that moment of, yeah, you want to win every pro tour event that you go to, but if you get beaten by a team because you've tried to go out and make something, you're going to lose some of those games, right? The teams are too good at the top for one team to dominate the whole time.
Things are just so small, you know. So to be dominant, is something, you'd love to be and create a bit of a gap between the rest, but it's just, yeah, so tight. Yeah. Mm.
So let's talk about the adaptability piece, because I think this is an area that you have to be a little bit careful of as a coach, because I think you want your athletes to feel safe. They have to, psychologically, it has to be a safe environment, but also there needs to be a little bit of challenge, right? A little bit of turbulence is my favorite word. Guy called Stuart Armstrong told me that. There has to be some turbulence, but it has to be safe, right? So how do you go about balancing that turbulence and the safety to then create these adaptable athletes?
Well, I think, for me, just from my kind of experience, I like to have some kind of key guiding principles sometimes. So whether that be tactical, but sometimes even technical as well, so that it's you're giving them some direction or understanding of, some physics around what you're trying to do on a technical kind of stuff. And so, but it's still allowing them to kind of explore in that space and kind of experiment a little around that. Yeah, and I guess the safety piece, yeah, I think sometimes a lot of it's common sense, isn't it? I think, the awareness, I think as a coach, like some of the self-awareness is such a key piece to it. I mean, self-control is another element after that. You can be aware of how you are, but I think in this moment there's like just being aware of what you are creating, or kind of how it is. But I think, like you can go a little bit crazy too, and I think that's when the representative piece comes in around, like, actually, is this representing, the game? Are they adapting to what I see in the game? Are they trying to find solutions for where I think that they need to be finding better solutions? Yeah, it's always kind of the key. I mean, there's lots of things out there now which you see, and trying to filter that stuff, especially on social media and stuff, was always a challenge, I think. Sometimes, yeah, the flashier it looks, not always the best solution.
Absolutely. Got a question for you on this. So we've got this great framework now.
Yeah.
One of the things or try to implement with my staff that I work with the U18s in our first camp is, as coaches, we have to also embody those 4As. Less so the athlete piece, but also you need to, for me, you need to be in good enough physical shape that you can run and lead your session.
Yeah.
Still, that you're healthy, that you're able to deliver um, mentally what you need to deliver. How important do you think it is that coaches themselves kind of embody these behaviors if they want to see or help their athletes also embody them?
Yeah, I think like, one of the, one part as a coach or a role that you take on is a mentor, and to be honest, me as a coach, I've been shaped around just I've been really lucky to have top coaches and be around, some fantastic people. So, that's kind of shaped me. And I think it's no different from your athletes. I think, when we always talk about the environment, it's like your behavior. When I plan my session, it's one of the things that I go through. I think athlete engagement, session design, but coach behavior, like what is my behavior going to be like? Because I can really influence, when I get into a session, I can be, oh, hey, this is a big point. This is a big one here. That's going to trigger and put a lot more stress and pressure on your player. If it's a serve, oh, here we go now, so I can actually, or I could choose to just say nothing, or I could go up and be like, hey, you got this, and be really supportive, so I could challenge or support them just by how I am, or what I say, or my body language. I think, you can't be expecting either your athletes to be kind of embodying these 4As without, I guess, trying to lead by example. And I think, you are a leader of the team as a coach, but I always see it as, as a role, you're not controlling things. I think you're just the facilitator, and again, that's behavior right there in itself, and I think, always asking your athletes what they actually think about that would probably be the best answer or the best reflection, which is not always easy to do, but I that's why I believe, and that's come from some of my best coaches. That's how I felt. We talk about like this psychologically safe environment. That's what it is, and it's really difficult sometimes to create that. And as a coach, reflect and be aware, and actually have the self-control to kind of embody that, so that's how the athletes feel.
I think it is tough, but it becomes less tough when you understand the point you just said about, as a coach, you're a part of the group, you're not the leader of the group. I think once you become at peace with that as a coach, once you understand that actually I'm a part of this, but I'm not in charge or in control, or it doesn't, not everything falls at your feet. If your athletes are not doing what they need to do to perform, they're not going to perform. That's not a reflection on you as a coach. You can help them and show them the way, but you can't do it for them. Suddenly it takes some of that pressure off of you, actually, as a coach, and suddenly it's really easy, or a lot easier, to be quite humble with how you coach. I get stuff wrong all the time. And actually, if I see that I've got something wrong or something that we're doing is not working, and I call everyone in and I'm like, look, I got this one wrong. We'll adjust it. We'll go here. No one bats an eyelid. Everyone in the session's like, cool, right, let's work on. We'll move on. We'll change what we're doing.
Yeah,
The
just thinking about like an experience, one of the coolest, proudest kind of moments that I look back on, especially towards the Olympic campaign in Tokyo, was our quarterfinal was against Canada. Pavan and Hermana Perez, Melissa, they were world champions, and I knew that the quarterfinal, just the way the draw worked and our seeding, was going to be the one that was going to be the game that really the big game. Usually I always led the team talk, and I was I get them motivated and get into it, like, hey, come on, we're gonna, like, go do this. But actually Maria Faye took over. And it was a real strange moment because I felt like I felt like it was a bit of a like risk because it was different, and I was like, oh, and then I just was like, you know what, like this is exactly what I want to be happening, is that the athletes are now going and saying, no, 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 we got this and we're going to go do it. And we went out there and they played incredible, and beat them. So that just even thinking about that there, that just from one of my experiences is like, in that moment too, you work so hard for that to happen. And then when it happens, you also go, oh, wow, this is what needs to happen? And it did. And then it obviously works out really, really well. And like quite a proud moment to see your athlete then go and almost, yeah, embody some of the stuff that you kind of been working on, or what you think is really important out there. And it just showed when she went and did it on the court exactly as well. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. The less we have to talk, the better things are going. The more these athletes are developing, especially as we talk about adaptability and autonomous behaviors,
Yeah.
audaciousness.
Mm,
Those athletes being able to speak up in those moments takes a little bit of courage the first time they have to do it.
yeah.
But it also does show that they're starting to be that critical thinker that you talk about in the piece. So, no, I agree. Um, let's dive into see growing up in New Zealand.
Yeah.
In For those that don't know a huge amount about sort of youth sport culture in New Zealand, it's an incredibly active country. I've got friends that grew up there, learned a lot about it. They played 5 or 6 different sports.
Yeah.
They sailed, they hiked all the time. Just incredibly active country. What kind of did you learn, or what can you call back to growing up in New Zealand that you think we can use here a little bit better?
Yeah, well, I mean, just even touching on a little bit, like I'm a proud Indigenous Maori. My father is a Maori. My mum is Dutch. So I had like quite a yeah. It was a yeah. One half of me wanted to buy everything. The other half didn't want to pay for it. It was kind of a little bit like that. It was, but it was really cool. Like, so my connections towards like my multicultures was really interesting, even with my coaching. So in indigenous kind of cultures, storytelling is, like I just grew up with my grandfather and my father just telling stories about my family and the history, and like that's we sit around and like even telling stories, having laughing and doing stuff like that. So that was really interesting, and that was actually I didn't really figure out that that's kind of a little bit of a style of my coaching as well. And I didn't. It was just who I was. That's who I am. That's how I kind of grew up. But yeah, I think some of the values as well. Like I think staying humble. I think also more of a collaborative kind of approach where everyone's there's the same importance like you're talking about. You're not at the top of the mountain and everyone's down there. So I think there was a lot of that. I think playing lots of different sports. Yeah, I mean I've got a son now who's 7 and a daughter who's 9, and I believe in long-term development for young athletes. I think I learned so much from rugby. I play rugby on a Saturday. I play rugby league on a Sunday. I was playing basketball on a Friday. At school, I was playing lots of things, badminton, so touch rugby, there was just so many different sports, which I feel like what I notice here more just in my area anyway with my kids is like there's less opportunities to do these things. And I think they're specializing really early. So I find it difficult because I want to, if we're talking about an athlete, and I want to have different movement solutions. If you're just doing one movement all the time, then it's no wonder that you get injuries or you don't have any other solutions now. So I mean, I just think and being outside, it was great. Even in Australia, I think it's pretty similar. That you got good weather too, which kind of helps. But I think that kind of outdoor living in the water, in the ocean, on the beaches and the forests, waterfalls, creeks, and just exploring and doing stuff. That was our upbringing. Climbing trees, like all this kind of stuff was that was kind of that was my upbringing. And that's just how it is back home, and that's pretty cool. And here in England, yeah, it's just more difficult to have these opportunities. You can still go do that, but it's just more difficult. Either you've got to pay for it, or they're just an hour, 2 hours away, or like places are built up. Where we are, love to go send my son down and climb trees in the park and stuff, but we don't have it around here, so we'd have to drive there. So it's not accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the culture piece is really, really important. And one of the reasons I think that New Zealand does so well in a lot of sports is this idea of helping to develop an athlete that goes on to represent New Zealand is the number one thing in sport in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Bigger than winning national titles. Friends a really good cricketer. Played professionally now in a couple of different countries. Was the junior Black Caps captain, and that's his number one thing. Is I got the opportunity to go and tour. He went to India. He went to a couple of different places, and that is where when I was over and visited, we went to his cricket club, and that was the thing they were most proud of. And they won loads of championships while he was there. They had two or three of the junior Black Caps in their team. But the fact that those three went on to represent New Zealand at age group level was the biggest achievement there. And I think that, and it is a collaborative culture in that way that you're trying to help athletes go and represent New Zealand. I think that's a really big culture piece that we could, in English volleyball, I think, in English junior volleyball especially, kind of embrace a little bit more of actually, can we use our junior volleyball? Yeah, we want to compete. And when those junior teams compete for national championships, it's fierce competition. But also, let's celebrate the developers, the clubs that develop in the top athletes.
Yeah.
The English kids that work with me currently that we won a national championship with last year, I think it was zero of our English athletes won a junior national championship coming through. And then we went on and we were able to win bucks last year. So I think looking at that development piece, I think could be key for us moving forward.
Yeah, and I think like it's interesting. Just some thoughts here now around what maybe is a little different. We always start, I think, in New Zealand with the why. Why are we doing this? And I feel like I'm in Germany at the moment, and that's where it's a little bit different. I feel like some athletes are there because they're good, and so they're not really. And I think everyone has a different why, and to accept actually sometimes that might be different than why you would do it, or it's really tough sometimes. I've had athletes that they want to be a medalist. They're at 10 years old, they dreamed about winning a medal, and that's all they, and that's their why. Others is just like, I just love playing volleyball. I just love it. And that's okay. Sometimes as in performance, it's tough sometimes to be like, oh, come on, we got to win. Got to go do all this stuff too. But I think you're right. And doing, I believe in volleyball as well. Like the higher that you get, I think the more individualized it gets as well. And I think that's what we're talking about now is that, it starts to kind of go up there. And then I think there's so many positives around, the whole journey, and everyone has a different journey. You could be a slow starter and then really excel later on, or you could be a real, really good at the start and then kind of plateau off. And, this is just the way that kind of sport works. But we do really, I think I am very proud of that for New Zealand. I feel like we really do celebrate, each other around, representing, it's a really, I think for family members and stuff like that, I know it's always talked about like, oh, my son, he's representing, the Black Caps, and things like that. It's prestigious and it's quite cool.
So a couple of quick fire questions to finish. If you had to define your leadership philosophy in one sentence, what would you choose?
Yeah, good question. I think I think it's built on trust. For me, I think I'm quite a relaxed, maybe kind of easygoing. My approach is I'm not the dictator. But yeah, I think it's always built on trust. I always believe in trust too. I think you only get one shot at trust. So I think that's important. And I'm a collaborative kind of guy. I have strong opinions and beliefs, but for me, I think it's important that everybody feels like they have a voice and can kind of speak up. So I'm not afraid to make tough decisions. And I'd say at the end, I feel like I'd like everyone to take ownership from the outcome, and I think that comes in, how you maybe how you approach it and how you work with whatever you're leading. So I'll probably say that that would be yeah, kind of some of the keys. Mm.
And then the second one, the question I ask everyone at the end of these episodes: what excites you most about the future of? We'll go beach volleyball. We'll go beach
Yeah,
volleyball.
go beach. Yeah. Oh, I think the athleticism. Um, there's so many amazing athletes, and I think the technical kind of skill level is just incredible. I mean, the watching the Swedish boys play with freedom and flair is pretty special. I wish I came up with the jump setting and hitting on two back in my day. Would have been pretty cool to have a go at that. But I just think it's exciting in a way where I think that the sport is evolved every kind of cycle every 4 years that the Olympic comes around. I feel like it's kind of going there. And from my side, I'm excited on the women's side because I feel like now there's just the game, there's the blockers and the athleticism that's on the court. I think now it's used to be, the girls maybe, couldn't move or do these things in the sand. Now I think that gap is closing. We got some phenomenal athletes now, the top 10 in the world, credible athletes, skillful and kind of able to kind of, maybe show what they can do. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, I think the last 10 years has been a bit of a ride. It's cool. Good to see.
Yeah, and I think heading into an Olympics in one of the real homes of beach volleyball, right? That's going to be a huge festival. I don't think people in the game quite understand how big both indoor and beach are going to be at LA 2028.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much the home right there. So I know it's going to be some tough to get some tickets to that one. I think a lot of it's going to be in Long Beach as well, the home of Snoop Dogg. So I'm sure he'll be floating around. And so yeah, it looks like they're going to have a whole lot of sports right there too. So it's going to be a good vibe, I think, with a whole different sports around. It'd be pretty cool. I've seen a few of the pictures of what they maybe want to go and where they want to go to. So yeah, it would be pretty cool. Yeah, it's a big sport, huh? In America, I think not. I think that's not at like the college level. It's just huge, and it's blowing up on the beach side now, which is really cool for the girls. A bit unfortunate for the boys, but yeah, it would be cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a great Olympics, and I agree. I think the beach game is exploding right now, and FIVB are doing some really fun things. The World Tour's doing some really fun things. So I think it can only get better from here. I think King and Queen of the Court is a really great take on the game as well. I think they do a really great thing. The event in London looked really really cool. I couldn't go to it. We had a game that weekend, but
We need to change that. Make sure that we don't have a clash.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's great. I think it's going to be really, really good. No, thank you, Kirk, ever so much for your time today. I think there's so much that people can get from this. I think we'll get back together towards the end of the year because I think there's going to be some development to this framework, hopefully, in the next few months. And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll come back on and hopefully be able to give even more good insight to people.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. Always good to chat about coaching and stuff like that. I love it. So yeah, appreciate it.
Perfect. All right.